Hey everyone, welcome back. Today is day 2 of 7 Days with Rio. If you missed the previous ones, you should go back and watch them first. We're going through Rio, through the documentation, and hopefully as we progress, start to actually deploy our own applications on it. My goal is to spend 7 days with Rio, a little bit every day, release a video that discusses what I've learned and shows you how I've gone about learning those things. And by the end of this, I want to be able to run Rio in production and take things that I'm using Kubernetes for and run them inside of Rio. So today we made a little bit more progress. I've learned how to promote and weight applications, how to do auto scaling, and how to use the dashboard. So those are the things that I want to show you right now. We'll start with auto scaling. Auto scaling is a little bit difficult to demonstrate because you need to have a service that actually has a little bit of latency in its response. The way that it works is because every service is bound to Linkerd, Rio has the ability to see the number of concurrent requests. When this goes above a certain threshold that you can either set or the default, it will, if instructed to do so, add additional replicas to the service. You can set the scale directly by saying scale equals 5, for example, or you can provide a range and that engages the auto scaling functionality. So in order to demonstrate this, I'm going to use the auto scale demonstration container because that has the latency built into it, and we'll see it actually start to do the scale. If you know that you want to do scaling from the beginning of your service's life, you can provide it as an option at Rio Run. But if you don't know, or if you haven't set it previously, you can take a running service and you can provide Rio Scale. First, let's look at the name of the service. You can take the name of the service, which as you see was up here and is in the default namespace. That's just a really ridiculously large name. But you can say Rio Scale and something like that. Service name equals 1 to 5. In the output of Rio PS, you can see that the scale, well, it wasn't ready at the time. If we look at it now, it'll tell you what the scale is. That's the number of replicas that are currently running. So let's send a bunch of traffic that way. And it's going to actually take it a minute to start scaling. If you're interested in the decision-making process around scaling, you can actually look at the logs for the autoscaler pod controller. I'm not actually sure what it's called, but for the autoscaler that runs inside of Rio, and you can see how it reports on things that it's supposed to pay attention to. You can already see here that it is scaled from 1 pod to 2, and is updating the service to scale equals 3. And if we come over here and look at the output of Rio PS, we now see that we have 2 out of 3 pods running. We're at a scale of 66% of our desired scale. Now we have 3 running. This will continue to scale up for as long as there are more requests than the concurrency is set to, and until it reaches the maximum threshold of what we've. Possible to set a minimum scale of 0, in which case with no traffic, the service will scale down to 0 replicas. Just remember that in that case, it takes a few seconds for the pods to restart on the first request. Aren't sensitive to latency in your application, then that's a way to keep your resource consumption down. And if you're using something like the new EKS Fargate implementation, I don't know if this works there, but if it were to work there, that would be a way to scale your actual applications down to 0 and consume 0 resources until the first time something gets. Maybe it works. Who knows? It was just announced yesterday. Yesterday, we versioned an application. So we had demo v1 and then demo v3, and we promoted v3 to receive 100% of the traffic. That happened instantaneously, but it doesn't have to. You can set a window for that to happen over. So you could set 10 minutes or 5 minutes or 30 seconds or whatever. You could also, if you wanted to do a canary deployment, you could set the new version or the old version. You could set one service to receive a percentage of the overall traffic. Let's first do that to do a test, and then let's promote it over time. I've gone ahead and set demo v1 to receive 100% of the traffic, so its weight is set to 100, and v3 is set to 0. This means that if we visit the endpoint, we should only see the hello world and nothing else. So there you go. To do a canary deployment, we'll use Rio wait. Any of the Rio commands will respond to a help request. You can say Rio help wait, and it'll tell you the options that are available. So we have duration and pause. You would use pause if you were in the process of doing a rollout and for some reason you needed to pause it, you didn't want it to continue. You could freeze it or deciding to undo it or let it continue. We'll tell Rio to send 5% of the traffic to the v3 demo. And because we didn't provide duration, it'll do that instantaneously. It's unlikely that we'll actually see the v3 because we're the only ones hitting it. So we'd have to hit it, 100 times and we might see 5 of them. But if we put some traffic on it, so that there's now lots of people hitting it, well, then we still don't have enough traffic to actually trigger that 5%. So let's change the weight. Let's send 50% of it across. Rio PS now shows us that we have 50% of the traffic going to each service. And now we can start seeing traffic going to v3 or to v1. That makes it really easy to do canary deployments, to roll out changes gradually, or to, well, in conjunction with the staging of things, if you had, for example, a new version of the website and you wanted it out for review before you actually made it live, this whole functionality makes it trivial to do those kinds of deployments. Now, let's just promote v3 to 100% and do it over the next 10 seconds. Okay. Haven't seen that message before. Yeah, that's interesting. Let's do this. We'll send 100% of our traffic back to v1. And now we'll send 100% of our traffic over to v3. And when we look at Rio PS, see that the weight shifted gradually. Now, all of this is done through the CLI, and the CLI is the most powerful way to interact with Rio. But the CLI isn't for everyone. In fact, there are a lot of things that you can do in a UI that you can just do faster or easier or more friendly or lots of reasons. Some people just prefer a UI. So new in 0.6.0 is the dashboard. Take a look. If you're on something that has the ability to fire up a browser for you, then running Rio dashboard will actually connect you to the Rio dashboard. Otherwise, you can just follow the URL that it prints out in the terminal. The first time that you connect to the dashboard, it will ask you to set a password, and it'll ask you to enable telemetry. We'll talk about telemetry in a second. If you have questions about it for now, though, you could click that I. It'll give you some information, but that's what we're going to discuss in a moment. This password is awesome. And now it's going to ask how we want to integrate with GitHub. Do you want to use a private GitHub Enterprise installation or just use the public GitHub? I'm going to skip that for now. Here's the dashboard, albeit without the GitHub integration. From here, you can see the services that we've already deployed. You've got demo at V1, demo at V3. You've got the weights over here. You have the number of connections, because apparently I still have Hey running, the age, the network information. And now you can start to get into what's going on inside of Rio. Let's actually turn Hey back on. With Hey back on, we should see these requests per second and the latency information start to tick up here as soon as traffic starts arriving. There you go. So 100% of our traffic is going to demo at V3. And so you can see the request per second is 220. And that's pretty high. And our 99% latency is 1 millisecond. The dashboard gives you a lot of information. In fact, if you're familiar with Rancher, you'll recognize the view edit YAML. So for anything that's in here, you could actually go in and directly edit the Kubernetes objects for it. Wow. All right, so you can even drill down into the Rio functionality. Start digging directly into all of that. That's very cool. You can see the Kubernetes objects, the Kubernetes resources that were created. So for that demo application, this is just, I don't know which one this is, V1 or V3, but yeah, version V1. So you can see all of the YAML that it generated just with that one Rio run command. Like we've got some secrets in here. We're not going to get into these things tonight. These will come up in a future video. So let's recap. We can now install Rio. We can deploy applications. We can version them. We can we can weight them so that traffic flows between them according to the percentage. We can promote them. We can do so over a duration, and we can connect to the dashboard and start to dig around at what's going on in there. This is just scratching the surface of what Rio is capable of doing. So tomorrow, I'll dig a little further, I'll learn a little bit more, and I'll come back and share that with you. Thanks for joining me tonight. See you tomorrow.
I was supposed to tell you about telemetry and I didn't, but there's a reason for that I'll tell you about tomorrow. I'm also going to talk about routers, public domains, and external services within Rio. Yesterday's video is here. Tomorrow's video is here. If there's nothing here, it means that tomorrow hasn't happened yet. So click the subscribe icon, make sure you check that bell, and you'll get notified when that video comes out.